Hello, everybody. Welcome to the DePIN podcast. I'm your host, Tom Trowbridge. We're excited to bring you interviews with the key founders in the DePIN landscape, investors, and ecosystem partners. This is an exciting time for DePIN, and this year we're going to be meeting even more founders, learning about the projects that they're building, about the traction they're getting, and about the revenue that they're generating. The podcast is brought to you by Fluence. Fluence is building a decentralized compute platform. It's a project I'm a co-founder of and really excited about. So buckle up for this year. Please subscribe to the channel, listen to us on Spotify or Apple. And of course, if you are around any of the large conferences, come to our DePIN Day, where you can meet these founders on the Fluence team in person and hear from all the ecosystem partners as well. So look forward to seeing you in person, and let's get going on this podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the DePIN podcast. I'm your host, Tom Trowbridge. I am thrilled to be here today with Konstantin, the CEO and co-founder of Titan Network. And Titan is building a DePIN for web services. Welcome, Konstantin.
Hello, everyone. That's a great pleasure to be here, Tom. Very excited.
Well, listen, Konstantin, tell us what DePIN for web services mean.
Well, I think it sounds very, very simple, yet there are a lot of things to unbox as we go through the conversation today. What essentially we do, we are able to aggregate idle resources from devices like storage, bandwidth, and compute. We can literally connect any type of device to Titan Network, whether that's personal phone, laptop, Raspberry Pi, or even data center grade infrastructure if you have one. We get the connection to the resources. We aggregate storage, bandwidth, and compute from those. Then we bundle it together and we provide it to our customers as web services on top of Titan Network. And by that web services, what you can think of that, it's very, very similar to the primitives that are usually being used by Amazon, Google, those big data center grade cloud providers. We are able to do the same. We provide you, for example, CDN services or storage solutions like S3 buckets or compute in a container architecture. All of that is possible on top of Titan. It just, instead of data center grade providers, we have people-powered cloud, where people are the owners of the devices and people are the final executors of tasks that are being sent to the network. I think that's very, very high level of what we are trying to do.
Listen, it's super exciting. That is kind of the holy grail, I think, of so many projects. And I think of almost all of DePIN is to effectively have a decentralized cloud running on community infrastructure, whether it's individuals or whether it is individual data center. So that's a holy grail, and it sounds great, but it also is hard. And we know that, for example, Filecoin has been building for 10 years just doing storage, right? And we've got Fluence here just doing compute. And so you guys are obviously focused on all of it, which strikes me as difficult and presents a lot of challenges. So help us understand kind of the benefits of your approach versus like the Protocol Labs just focusing on storage first as an example.
And honestly, I've been working at Protocol Labs before myself as a startup operator, so I know the nitty-gritty parts of that angle, and focusing on one resource is something I've done in the past. And I think that's a fair point, where there are two general pathways that we see right now in DePIN, where you either specialize in one resource really, really, really well, and then that becomes your base layer, and that's where you build out your network and solutions for. The other approach is to provide not a specific resource or access to a specific resource, but rather providing the full end service to the customer. And that's what Titan Network is focusing on. Our goal, for example, one of our biggest clients right now is TikTok, who is using us for our CDN business. And that's where our goal as Titan Network is to provide the access to the CDN network that they can leverage and use on their day-to-day business. And what we have seen before was that one of the challenges that DePIN was usually facing, whether that's DePIN of the past cycle, where there is a huge specialized resource availability, but not so much utilization, because it's very hard to convince the real customer to switch towards you for leveraging that resource, but they have to depend on other infrastructure for some other cases. I think that's where we took a little bit different approach with Titan Network, where we focus what customer is willing to pay for as a complete solution. And our answer in the beginning of the Titan Network was CDN services. That's very clear, very effective, and at the same time, very infrastructure it's a solution that exists for a while, and it's very, very clear how to bring that resource to the customer, how to ensure that from our nodes across the globe, people can deploy their content and then stream it to the nodes that they're interested in. And that's where we are leveraging or going in the pathway of providing the full end service rather than access to a specific resource. And I think that's where we kind of took a little bit different approach. And for me, honestly, both solutions are very valid to survive, very valid to exist and offer their business to their customers. What we just saw, it's much easier to onboard a client to tell them, hey, we are able to solve your problem on CDNs, rather than to say, hey, we can provide you a lot of bandwidth and it's your responsibility to figure out what you do with it. And I think while the DePIN of the past cycle was very, very focused on aggregating a lot of resource, Filecoin was a great example of that. Or this cycle, Akash, other GPU resource providers, Fluence for sure. And that's where I think you are always bringing to this customer this point, hey, we have an amazing availability of resources. But then they kind of have to rely on a supporting infrastructure to get benefit of that. That was the case with Filecoin, where yes, we were able to provide really amazing storage, but they had to rely on connectivity for something else, on compute for something else, on bandwidth for something else. And that's where it's very high cost for customer to switch unless your offering is very clear and that's what customer needs. I think that's where very cool use cases for Filecoin were appearing, like storing content for NASA, where they have large volumes of content and they needed to keep it for a long time so they can do research and so forth. That's amazing, perfect use fit case. But for the majority of businesses, they want to act very fast. They want a complete end-to-end solution. They don't want to bother with multiple architectures that they need to maintain and connect to in order to make one thing work and in order to make savings. They want a complete solution, and that's what Titan is here for.
Listen, let me phrase it a little differently. Being customer-centric, which is sort of what you're talking about, to me is a terrific strategy. And I think a lot of crypto projects historically have suffered from being technology-centric and customer-second potentially. So if you guys are customer-centric, and I frankly think a lot of DePIN projects or just in general, DePIN projects are much more customer-centric than crypto in general. You have a terrific head start. And frankly, you have to be, because you're competing with the centralized businesses who are customer-centric. But on that case, I also think there are specialized, decentralized, or specialized DePIN CDNs. And for people who don't know, CDN is a content delivery network. Biggest centralized company out there that does it, I think, is a company called Akamai, which was a huge venture capital success, 20 years ago or around there. And it's just a monster in the space. But that is an incredibly important, powerful business. And for anyone who doesn't know, it basically is the type of business that when you click on something, it helps to make sure that you get that very quickly by basically storing it and sending it to you from servers closer to where you are geographically. Is that fair, Konstantin?
And I think great example of that are Instagram or TikTok, where you as a customer will never want to wait until the next batch of content comes to you. You want to consume the content cycle after cycle after cycle. And that's where the lower the connectivity between you, the quicker the connectivity between you and the server that provides you content is, the better the customer experience you have. And that's why CDNs exist, because you don't want to send the content all across the earth every single time someone retrieves it. So it's better to position it as close to your consumer as possible. And that's where, again, the closest you can be to your consumer is actually on device that he has or on the device nearby. And Titan Network is targeting this device nearby as the location of your content. And that's why we're so interesting to a lot of customers, because suddenly they can position the content where it is consumed, not on the data center level, maybe in another city or another country sometimes, especially if we're talking about, but it can be in your locality, in your neighborhood, in the same area. And that unlocks many, many more use cases that are only now possible with DePIN and not anything else. And that's why I think being on one side customer-centric, but at the same time solve the problem that no one else is able to solve, is what really brings a unique striking point for Titan and for the DePINs that are popping off right now across the market.
So that would be a edge network, an edge storage delivery,
Yep.
edge CDN network, effectively, like proper edge.
Exactly. It's like we call it last mile delivery services because it still what really matters to customers across the globe. And I think what we really kind of missing out these days is like all of those large customers like AI or even OpenAI, they would be useless if they cannot deliver the information from their data centers to you. And those connectivities are often are often considered as granted. But the reality is that there are multiple layers of connectivity in order for that to happen. So if you can tap into those network of just connections, you are building a very valuable resource for an incredible amount of customers across the globe.
Really interesting. Well, let's, I want to dig into a lot of that, but let's back up for a second and talk a little bit about you and about Titan's kind of journey. And I know you joined, you're a co-founder and CEO. You joined as, I think, Chief Commercial Officer, I believe, and maybe talk a bit about your background and how you kind of arrived to where you are.
I joined as a Senior Executive Officer in 2023. We were looking for opportunities. Honestly, there's a lot, to be completely fair, DePIN is a still pretty small space, and Web3 in general is still a pretty small space. So once I finished working with Protocol Labs, I was definitely looking for another opportunity for building infrastructure in those kind of environments and focusing on Web3 infrastructure or Web2 infrastructure, just solving those hardware and connectivity issues to people around the globe. And that's where I encountered Titan Network as a simple application on the job board of Protocol Labs. So great cheers to those guys for managing and still keeping that connectivity within the ecosystem. So for me, it was a very traditional application, meeting with founders, meeting with the team, figuring out that we love each other. We see how we can make the best use of each other's skills. And since then, I'm working with Titan Network. And since 2023, actively contributing, building, raising the funds, making sure that our services are available to as many customers. And that's definitely been quite a journey. So it's exciting. There's a lot still more to do, but I'm very, very inspired by what the team was able to achieve. And realistically, we started in 2021 as Titan Network. We started as a grant for Protocol Labs as well. We initially were building hot caching layer for Filecoin ecosystem, but then we realized that there is much, much more potential than to serve just for one node, just for one network. And that's where we scaled our Titan Network solution as something more comprehensive that anyone could benefit from. So
that's interesting. I mean, you're maybe aware of Protocol Labs as an early investor in Fluence as well. So we know that ecosystem, and you're not the first founder I've spoken to that has started off at Protocol Labs. I think Protocol Labs has employed a lot of pretty talented people who've moved on to do a variety of other kind of things in the DePIN space and others. But that's certainly great. Tell us, let's get into then in terms of the DePIN element. Obviously, Protocol Labs, as you sort of implied, is, it was DePIN before it was DePIN,
Yep.
and they've spawned a number of startups in the space. What I'm interested in learning about the incentivization that you guys do, because you clearly then, to create this CDN, you've got to have a lot of consumer devices all over the world, right? I'm guessing laptops, hard drives, phones, whatever it is. So how do people join? How are they compensated? How have you sort of architected that distribution and incentive model? It's good. It's a real effort.
Totally. And I think that's where you, again, have to think about your customer first. We also treat supply as a customer of ours. They need to have as low barrier to enter the ecosystem as possible. And since we're talking about mobile devices, it's not the same audience as a sophisticated Web3 user who is familiar with multitude of wallets, multitude of chains, how they're connected to each other, how to link your token from one place to another, how to bridge it, etc., etc., etc. It's like depth and complexity. We're talking about an average device owner who maybe has a phone, who maybe has installed multiple apps on their phone. Maybe they're even using it on a daily basis, but they are not a sophisticated IT person. So our goal with the network growth was to make it as simple to use Titan Network or to become a contributor to Titan Network as possible. So today, in order to start sharing your resources, you literally need to do 2 clicks. First one is install an application. Second one, start earning. And that's all you have to do. And only then you will see that your token starts to accumulate for the resources that you're sharing. Once you click start earning, we see the amount of resources that you allocated to the Titan Network. We start deploying tasks to your device. And then you start earning from doing useful work on our ecosystem. And that's where, first of all, like 2 clicks, no, very, very simple infrastructure. In order to be a contributor in Titan Network, you do not even need to create a wallet in the first place. It's a secondary task. Once you accumulate it enough, you are incentivized to actually figure out and connect your account on the device to the wallet in the Cosmos ecosystem. So there's like a tiers of people onboarding, and we want to ensure that there is at every single tier, there is a clear incentive for you to progress, learn more, and become more bigger and bigger contributor of the network, so to say. So on an incentive side, what we really do is whenever clients rent resources from Titan Network, TikTok is renting resources from Titan Network. We have more than 20 enterprise customers we are working with right now in 140 countries. And that's incredible number to begin with. But whenever customer pays for the resources that we are aggregating on the Titan Network, those payment, 80% of that payment goes directly to all the resource providers based on the resources that they've been contributing for this specific task. So it's always network tries to match the reward for what actual useful work you have done inside the ecosystem. And once we are able to validate those work, we are assigning corresponding rewards to your particular node. So 80% of that is being distributed. There's also some extra rewards on top, depending on network growth, depending on multiple metrics, whether you are new in the area where we are growing with customers, whether there is a more demand and supply in those current region. So that's a little bit of additions on top. But our general strategy is 80% of the client payment goes to therapy resource providers, and then 20% goes to Titan Network as a fee for providing services. So that's where we also deal with a lot of black box issues where current cloud kind of has, where it's not very clear. I'm paying for Akamai or I'm paying for my Google Cloud environment X amount of dollars per month, but how much that does actually cost to them to run that, and what are the other extra costs that they have. So that's where we are trying to combat this like black box architecture that traditional cloud has, having this transparency that the client paid to us this amount, it's valid on the blockchain, we can see that, and that from this amount, 80% has been distributed to those node providers. That's the exact reward that they received. It's all fully transparent, it's all visible, and I think that's an approach to build a better business where you clearly understand your rewards, your revenues, and how much the ultimate beneficiary paid you for providing the service in the first place.
Listen, this is interesting in a couple of different ways, but number one, a lot of DePIN networks first scale, or historically in Protocol Labs, you're going to be very familiar with this, first scale hardware and then wait for demand to come. Sounds like you guys haven't done that. You've done it the reverse way. Someone should tell you you don't do it that way. And you're supposed to not get customers for years. No one told you that. But that's how it's supposed to be.
I got it. I got it. Thanks for clarification.
But great that you've got those customers, and then when people join, they are earning. But what that also means to me is that you only earn if the customers is using your hardware, right? So how does this flow? And if it's 80%, and that's great, it almost becomes community rewarded. If you're in New York City or you're so-and-so, like, yeah. A, there's a lot of demand, but B, there's also probably a lot of supply. So
exactly,
who knows? If you're in somewhere else, who knows? You may be very important because there's only one. I don't know. But how then does but you also said they're rewarded, but then you also mentioned tokens. So how's the payment versus tokens work from customers?
From customers, whenever the customer pays for the resources, the goal is to convert that to the TNT token. And then the remaining pathway is to fully TNT token as a core exchange mechanism. So there's like We are finalizing our buyback mechanisms right now so that whenever a customer pays, we don't want to create complexities for customers. We don't expect that customers like TikTok have TNT tokens to pay for the services to begin with. So we are building on-ramps and payment channels that on one side can take any type of payment to the network. On the other side, they have a clear acquisition of value for the Titan ecosystem. And that happens only if they are using tokens of Titan network. And that's where they essentially, with every task that they are renting the resources for Titan network, they're essentially buying the tokens in the backbone, and then these TNT tokens are being distributed to the node operators all across the globe. So that's how we solve like the payment side, how we accrue value for the ecosystem every single time someone rents the resources out.
So if I'm TikTok, I spend $1,000, and that $1,000 I buy whatever your token number of tokens, and then I'm buying those tokens, but am I spending them? Then I'm also spending them for the task.
Exactly.
Or maybe that happens behind the scenes, and then you guys allocate those tokens based on the individuals who have contributed.
Yeah, individuals' contributions based, like, for example, if you rent for the whole month, on the daily base, we check the settlements, we check how much each node contributed, because we are working in a dynamic environment. Today, a person has a mobile connected for 24 hours in a day. He should receive for reward for all the 24 hours. But maybe next day, he got disconnected or something else happens, or he was using his device and it was not so many resources available. He still should be rewarded for the part he contributed, but not the same one as he had the day before. So that's where we are having a dynamic allocation and balancing. And that's where we, every single day, we know how much each resource has been utilized on your device. And you receive a reward based out of that information. And that's how we ensure that customers are happy with the quality of services. It gets us a very small time loop where we know that customer was using the services and people were providing good services to the customer. And then the settlement is basically happened.
And so that means that if you add hardware it's not used, you don't get tokens. You're there, right?
It depends. We still do across the whole network. We still have spot checks that happens every 30 minutes across the whole network to ensure that we can allocate your task when it comes. We need to validate whether your resources are still being available. So for those spot checks in the network, you still receive the full reward as you are doing a correct task. It's just that the spot check by itself isn't a significant task. It's rather a validation mechanism for us to ensure that you are still online, that if customer comes, we can allocate the task to you immediately. And that's a sanity or security spot check that we do for every single device in the network every 30 minutes, roughly. We're keeping the secret what that spot check is in order for our node operators not to gamify it beyond reasonable amount. And if it happens, well, so once you do the spot check, you receive a small reward. So we want to keep you incentivized to be in the ecosystem still. It's just that a significant portion of your reward will come when you actually do the useful work.
Gotcha. And what, in terms of devices, is it mainly, you mentioned 2 clicks, it's mainly hard drives. I'm guessing it's mainly people adding laptops. Is that most of what's on the network? Is that most valuable to you?
Personal phones are very significant contributors of the network. Then there's also what we really love as a network. Let's say even better, what our customers really love is the stationary devices like hardware boxes, like NASA's or simple CPUs connected to the network and contributing the resources. But in general, we have mobile device network that's maybe like 50% of the whole network, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the day. And the remaining part is personal devices, data center grade infrastructure. We have those contributors as well. And it just really depends on the node architecture, and that's where we are a little bit agnostic to what you want us to share. What we care about is the stability of your resource and the amount of your resources. If your resources are stable and if your connectivity is stable and you're providing a good amount of resources, then we'll happily utilize it from whichever device or hardware you have.
Terrific. And help us understand scale, like how many devices, or what's the revenue number, or how do you think about scale in the network?
Well, today, I think that's where it's really, really fascinating to me. And I want to say hello and thank you to all device runners on Titan Network. Today, we have more than 550,000 devices across the network connected and installed the hardware. We have more than 90K daily active users on the network as well. So those people are coming to the network every single day, making sure that it's up and running, contributing the resources out. And right now, we actually have 2 testnets that are running on Titan Network in parallel at the same time. So the third testnet, which is the OG network, that's like where the majority of resources are allocated today, is the all type of resource network. And that's where you can contribute to storage, bandwidth, and compute all together. It's provided in the ecosystem, and we find a match to customers across the globe right now. We also have fourth test network, which is specifically focused on CDN as a service or as a resource per se to the customers. And there we currently have a whitelist mechanism or waiting list mechanism where people can submit which type of resources do they have, and we will onboard them in the countries where we see the demand. Right now, we have 5 countries open in that fourth testnet. We have China, we have Japan, we have Vietnam, Thailand, and Brazil. And in those regions, we are onboarding more and more nodes. So our goal is to ensure that whenever a customer is using the resources, they have a high quality resource. And at the same time, we waitlist everyone else because we know it's valuable for us to know that we can serve customers in those regions. If we see a lot of nodes coming from the region, we are extending our business searches and sales in those regions as well, in order to match as many customers as possible and in order to onboard as many nodes as possible. So it's a balancing from a different side. We first find the clients who pay for the resources, and then we onboard the nodes to the network in those regions.
Again, you're going about it all wrong. Everyone always onboards everything first, then hunts for customers for years. Someone's got to tell you. But love that. And why the first 4 countries you mentioned are a bit of a surprise to me. Is that given the TikTok relationship, which you mentioned, or what drives, Vietnam, China, and I forget the other 2?
Yeah, those regions are coming from interest in TikTok expansion. Obviously, they have all the regions available and connected to the network, but through the provider that we work with them with, they are interested in those specific to start to begin with. And then our goal is to scale as many countries and as many regions as possible, finding more and more clients who are willing to rent the resources from the Titan network.
And then are a lot of those, you mentioned 500,000 devices, 90,000 daily active users. Are those all in those 4 countries?
No, those are all across the globe.
But I thought you only onboard devices in markets where you have demand.
Yeah, so for the third testnet, we enable everyone to participate in the network, and that's where maybe the balance is happening. Third testnet is right now responsible for storage and container architecture, and customers can go online, go to our tws.titanet.io, and then rent the resources directly. There, we don't need to gatekeep anyone. Their resources are available, and they are up and rented when the customers see the value and fit for that. That's where we aren't really gatekeeping anyone and enabling all the participants to benefit from it. But for the fourth testnet, what we see a lot of value for the CDN business, we have to ensure the quality of the services provided. That's where only 5 countries currently are connected to the fourth testnet.
And so then how are you rewarding the people that are in the testnet that's not the CDN business, which is where you have the customers?
Well, they're earning, same as in testnet 4, they're earning testnet tokens, and their reward is based out of the component for the spot checks. That's still available for everyone in the network. And it's also based on the rewards that customers from storage and container architecture are coming from. We have customers in that space as well. And there's people renting the resources around the globe. If you, for example, use Titan storage, you can deploy your content in S3 bucket architecture anywhere in the 145 countries that we're currently working with. So actually encouraging you to try and test it out. So It works, it functions, and you can even use it from Telegram. I think that's where we also really excelled how we provide and deliver services to our clients. So you can connect it through the storage architecture. There's multiple translation apps that have been built on top of Titan Network, which we actually used together on a DePIN day in Hong Kong recently. You can use peanuts.ai.
I missed you there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are major obstacles that sometimes happens in life, but now I'm here and now I'm happy to share that.
Nope, fair enough. Well, and I missed it too. I wasn't there either. But tell me then, Konstantin, about what is the vision for scale, right? I think for people that don't understand, even just CDN is what, tens of billions of dollar business, maybe even more, right? And then you're doing other things as well. So, right. So help us understand scale, rollout, how many devices you can envision, what revenue you can think of. Like, how do people think of this as scale?
Yeah. Well, fully transparent with you, fully transparent with our community. I think the core business model of Titan Network right now is traffic arbitrage. We very effectively can provide access to cheap bandwidth for enterprises around the globe. That's where people connect to Titan Network. They can save up to 75, 80, 85% sometimes on their CDN costs, which is incredible. For companies large scale like TikTok, Tencent, Lenovo, others, they are leveraging that a lot right now. And that's where we see a lot of scale on the traffic arbitrage as our core business model for the bandwidth solution. We are capable of providing cheaper bandwidth because we have access to the residential bandwidth of the device owners that we have across the globe.
Like the excess residential bandwidth, effectively, right?
Exactly.
I'm paying $50 a month and I'm not using it. So now TikTok, it's all TikTok, and all of a sudden TikTok's using what I'm not using.
Yeah.
And so it's effectively for, they're paying you what, a fraction of what they'd pay a traditional CDN. You said 75% less. And it's because I'm basically using excess. Yeah.
So that's very, very simple. That's where you put your idle resources and you start earning from them. I think that kind of mindset, we always dreamed about that throughout the existence of internet. Earn while you sleep, or get benefit of something you don't need. But here it is. You can literally connect your unused bandwidth to Titan Network, and we find a customer and leverage that for you, and you will receive benefits from running the nodes in parallel. So that's one angle that we talked with. Another angle is all of those resources and scaling. Since we operate as a hardware node, or like as a node on your hardware device, we have access to storage and compute as well, which we are actively leveraging and looking for customers across the globe that is interested in renting that out. And we have customer success already. It's just we're looking to grow that at scale, because those idle resources in millions of devices that are available globally is a very unique and super valuable resource once you think of your customer locality. And if you want to be as close to the customer as possible, that rents your resource out, or that does something with your application, device, service, whichever. Think a very cool use case, which I'm always providing as an example. Imagine like ordering food. You really don't want to store the pictures of the food anywhere else except the region where this food can be delivered. So your content of pictures of the burrito or salad or anything else you want to order should only exist in the location where the range of delivery is. And that's a perfect use case for the Titan network, because you can position the pictures of the content only in the locality where the people are living in those neighborhoods, and don't waste your time and energy and effort sending that information to a data center in another country. That's where there's a super cool benefit of being as close to the user as possible while maintaining the cost efficiency and savings on a company level. The other use case, and where we see a lot of growth and potential, is the emerging markets, emerging countries and emerging markets around the world. It's projected that by 2030, roughly 60% of cloud traffic will come from emerging regions like South America, Africa, MENA region, Asian region. But at the same time, those regions have 10 to sometimes even 100 less available cloud infrastructure. And it will take another 5 to 10 years to build this out and make it available for their clients in those regions, but they will be consumer much, much, much sooner. So our goal is targeting those emerging regions first and provide the cloud architecture and infrastructure in those regions because they already have mobile phones. They already have demands. They already have running businesses. What they're lacking is a service level of cloud infrastructure. And we are building that service level on top of Titan Network and ready to provide it from the people-powered cloud. So we're a perfect fit for those emerging markets to build their businesses today out of Titan Network, leverage our containers, storage, CDN architectures, and then benefit from it right here and right now. Don't wait another 5 to 10 years till the traditional cloud data center grade infrastructure will be built there.
Really interesting. I also think about the emerging markets as relevant because a smaller amount of earnings is also moves the needle there as well.
True.
So
that's a very significant driver that we see.
I'm guessing that's helpful. Now, those customers may be worth less to your TikTok people as well. So I'm not sure how that comes out. But help me understand. Also, if I put on my laptop, what do you expect someone to earn? In how do people model this out, or what have they historically been earning? Where do you think that goes?
Yeah. Well, very, very roughly, we have multiple estimations, and those are obviously different depending on how many resources from your device you're allocating to the network. But we estimated that from a 5-6-year-old device that's connected to the network, imagine you probably have an old phone that's laying around somewhere. You plug it into the charger, you install the Titan Network application, you connect it to the Wi-Fi, and it runs 24/7, or it runs for a significant portion of your day. While you're away, while you're using your other devices as the main utilization points. Then that particular device can earn you from $3, $5, $10, maybe $15 on a monthly basis. So it could get you a cup of coffee in a developed country. It could be a substantial part of your revenue in a more developing country. It would cover your bandwidth costs or internet costs for the same period. And yeah, it honestly just depends on the amount of resources. That's a very rough estimation all across the world for the whole world that we have. And specifically in regions, we are providing right now tooling for people to estimate their returns in specific regions. Because as you're completely correctly saying, every region will have their own returns based on the clients that they have based on the clients that we have in that region. So if customer is willing to pay for that region and for that services, obviously our model is transparent. 80% of that goes directly to customers. It's just a question, what's the comparative services that they can rent and what are the prices they can rent otherwise in those regions? And that's where the market starts to play.
And help us understand also, you've talked about being customer and revenue centric. So what would make you happy? I don't know if you can talk about where your revenue is now. I'd love to hear it. I don't know if that's to be released, but if it is or isn't, pick your date, 2 years, 3 years, what revenue number would make you happy?
That's a great question. I think where we are happy with with the growth of enterprise clients that are renting resources out from Titan Network all across the globe. And our biggest metric right now is to onboard as many countries to use Titan Network CDN services. So now we have 5. Our goal for the next year is to hopefully onboard 50 or more countries that are actively using Titan Network CDN services. Now it'll be a significant push for our ecosystem, and that will also be a really great proof that these type of resources are needed and people are willing to pay for this kind of resources. What we also saw just right now, I was checking with our team, we just break through $1 million annualized revenue of the protocol. So by protocol revenue, we are already in top 10 top 10 DePIN by protocol revenue on the testnet stage. So I think that's a very amazing place to be at. We're hoping soon to break through top 5, and our goal for the next few months is to get into this top 5 by protocol revenue in the DePIN ecosystem. I think that nicely would align with our mainnet launch in Q2, end of Q2 this year. So that's where we all are coming towards and where a lot of our focus and energy is coming towards. But that's where we're actively building and actively growing to ensure there's more customers, more clients, and ultimately more nodes who are benefiting from Titan Network on a daily basis.
Terrific. That's great revenue numbers, and thrilled to have that and to be growing that. You've obviously mentioned that would put you in the top 10 on DePIN. That's terrific. I mean, I think the revenue numbers are, let's just say there's some networks that claim 70 million and there's some networks that are in the hundreds of thousands. And so one of the things I'm sort of would like to see is some more, and right, there's no quarterly filings, there's no SEC, there's no audits. So it is, I think inevitably we are going to see revenue overstatements. And so I'm looking, forward to more of a standardized on-chain revenue that we can all point to and see, so that is now becomes, we leapfrog to actually from being untrusted past being audited to be more trusted if everything is visible on chain. So I'm hopeful you guys are thinking about how to do that, so it's super clear to everybody what you're actually doing.
Yeah. And I think that's where transparency from our initial business model also comes into play. It's very we are super open and public about about this distribution of all the customer payments. So whenever customer rents the resources out, you can project that 20% of that goes to the Titan network as a service fee. And that's where beyond this, it's super hard to cheat, or it's hard to fake the information. It's in blockchain. It's immutable. We know that information. Everyone knows that. And we can fairly and transparently estimate how much the network earns, how much we could do more, and where is the next customer that is willing to pay for the services that we are providing.
Terrific. What, you've obviously looked at this space for a while. You were at Protocol Labs. What other projects do you find interesting? Are there, as you look to go mainnet, are there projects you're thinking about from either a token side or otherwise that you're paying attention to?
Honestly, I am, and that kind of nicely loops into the beginning of our conversation. I am super excited about integrations and collaborations with projects with highly specialized resources. We already did an integration with Filecoin a while ago, where customers can back up their content from Titan network directly into the Filecoin ecosystem if they want to. We want to work with more specialized DePIN resource networks, and one of the great other examples is Fluence these days. All of those resources that are being aggregated for compute, for bandwidth, for storage, we are willing to integrate and find the ways how customers from Titan network can benefit from those as well. Our ultimate goal is to become that architecture of connectivity or resource layer infrastructure where customer comes to us, they want to solve a specific problem, or they need a specific service from Titan Web Services. And we can help them to do that within our network or in partnership with other networks as well. I think that's a very, very healthy balance where on one side, a lot of other DP projects can benefit from our existing client side. And our clients are ultimately benefiting from getting the access to the resources at the best possible rate without overhanging complexity of figuring out how do I merge multiple resources together in one solution. I think that's where we are slowly getting towards that balance in the DePIN ecosystem, where there'll be multiple tiers, whether you're providing the hardcore level resource, maybe you provide a service on top of that, or you can provide both, but you fairly understand the spaces where you can collaborate. For example, for Titan network, we are very clear and understanding that average mobile device or edge device will never be capable of significant high-end compute services. And that's where partnering with GPU providing companies makes for us very total sense, because that's an additional service that customer may need in the cloud infrastructure ecosystem in the future. And we are more than willing to help with an integration to figure out what we can do together in order to have that as a service within Titan ecosystem provided directly to the customer. We're abstracting the complexity for the customer, and we are also connecting more resources into a unified ecosystem that can create value for all its participants.
Interesting. Well, then what are the challenges you're facing as you kind of roll this out? What are the technical challenges? Or you could also talk about what your kind of your product roadmap is. What are you either challenges, or what are you really excited to release soon? Because whatever you're releasing soon has got to have been a challenge to some extent because it's not done yet. So you can look at it that way also.
Yep. that's, I think, a totally fair point. And I think that's where we are. Our biggest focus and effort was on being ready for the mainnet launch by the end of Q2 2025. So all of our effort and resource dedication goes to that direction as well. So our goal is to be mainnet ready, to have that all core functionality that we promised to our community and to our customers, and make sure that all of it functions to the best possible state that clients can use on the day one. But honestly, we already have paying customers on the testnet stage, which really proves that we're on the right path. And our bigger question is stability, scaling, and more partnerships if we're speaking about different type of resources. So that's where we're looking the most. I think one of the cooler things that we are actively working on right now is the blockchain aspect and the tokenomic aspect. We actually should release our white paper and tokenomics hopefully within the next month, maybe month and a half from here. And that maybe is a great highlight for this DePIN podcast as well. We're actively working on that. And these two pieces of very, very important documents for the Titan network ecosystem are coming together right now and being released as soon as we have them, basically. It's just that a lot of work, a lot of thoughts, and a lot of external support is also coming to shape that very important pieces of Titan network ecosystem. And once that is released, I think we'll be very, very close to the mainnet launch. And it's just a matter of executing and finalizing the architecture.
Well, that's great. I guess one little plug here. I recently released my DePIN tokenomics report. So hopefully you take a look at that, and then maybe something you may not have considered to factor into all your considerations is all the different constituencies you need to please both in your network and your ecosystem. But certainly look forward to the token economics report. And also, I think you guys are launching hopefully in Q2, others are as well. I think I'm going to need by the end of Q2 or Q4, going to have to release another report because there are going to be a whole number more projects out there to incorporate. And so I think I wanted to get this out early, but you guys are one of several that I think are going to be releasing a really exciting project. So I'm going to have to add a whole nother addendum to this to keep it current. But certainly excited to do that. How do people find this once it's out? How do they contribute resources to your network? How do they sign up? How do they kind of get involved?
Yeah, amazing. And amazing question and an amazing effort. Really appreciate that. Well, first of all, definitely happy to be part of your next report and happy to work closer, like sharing the insights or how we're approaching some of our tokenomic design points. But if people are interested in following up the Titan network in any way, from being a customer, being a node runner, or just getting curious and asking us questions, all that is extremely, extremely welcomed. And we are happy to get connected over. You can follow us on Twitter. You can go to our main webpage, titannet.io, and be directed wherever your customer, supply, demand, all the source of information is there. You can also download our application from that website as well. So follow us on Twitter, join our Discord, and then be part of the exciting ecosystem that we are actively building together.
Terrific. Well, that is great to hear. Thank you for joining. It's been great to have you on, and look forward to having you on after the network is launched and you've got even more revenue and customers, which you're not supposed to have.
Amazing. I'm definitely looking for that as well. And that was an incredible pleasure to speak with you, Tom, today. So thanks for invitation.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining
for the podcast. And that's an amazing time to chat with you on DePIN. Really appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you. The DePIN podcast, the place where we explore real world use cases unlocked by crypto. That's all for today. Thanks for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us grow. Add a like, add a comment. And of course, if you have anyone you think we should be talking to or have on this podcast, either leave a comment there or reach out. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.